Part of the issue with property is being able to hold onto it through good times and bad and not have the government seize it. We've dealt with issues like expropriation in the past, and that's when they seize all your land. But what about when they just come in and take small parts of it? Of course, in June and July of this year, we were talking extensively about the High River gun seizure. Those aren't the only gun seizures across Canada over the last year, though. Ed Burlew is a lawyer, firearms expert, joins us from Toronto studio. And Ed, put this into terms for people that are not gun owners, that don't shoot, that don't have firearms. Why should they care? From a property rights perspective, why should they care about the cops seizing someone's gun?
Well, seizing any kind of personal property, be it a gun, for an alleged offense, or in the situation of guns, they can even seize a gun if the police officer believes that maybe you might do something bad with it. Like, in other words, somebody in your family or a former friend calls up the police and says, I think Harry is going to do something bad with his gun. He might kill himself. He might threaten me. The police can come in and just take it. That's akin to somebody saying, well, I hear tell Fred's going to take his car out and break the speed limit, so we should go seize his car.
Well, or to put it in better perspective, he's going to run people down. They wouldn't necessarily seize your car. They might come and talk to you, but they wouldn't seize your car and not give it back.
Well, even when you're right. You're right on that. But what happens is they seize without any checking out. It's a one-sided information that people get, and then the police react to it. They just take the guns.
But in High River specifically, there was no claim that anyone was going to do anything. Let's connect this to High River. There was no claim that anyone was going to do anything bad. You had the town under lockdown, military patrols at night, RCMP blocking entrance and exit from the town, and they went in and seized them. That is a huge violation of personal property rights. Give us an idea on why non-gun owners should care about that one.
Non-gun owners should care because this shows, frankly, that it's almost as a police state. Here, the police did not, they made the seizures before the Emergency Act was declared.
Even the Emergency Act, which I've read, does not give them power to trump to seize these. Does not.
That's correct. They didn't even use the criminal code, because had they properly used the criminal code, after a seizure, they would have reported back the seizure to a judge to ask for a judge's direction as to whether or not there should be a prohibition hearing or whether the gun should be given back. They didn't do that. They put in their own notes, which I've recently read, that they should have, but they didn't do it. So they acted totally outside of the law. And that should bother everyone. Everybody who's interested in any type of property rights has to pay attention to that, because there was no safety issue. There was no problem with the individual. The police just decided to do it. They had 200 police officers and armed forces people guarding that town. There was no reason to take the action they took.
So when you've got an emergency situation like High River, unless there's checks and balances, unless there's political pressure, media pressure, the police will invent their own rules and seize what they want. In my view, if they can do it to guns, they can do it to anything else. But during non-emergency times, they just need someone calling up, could be playing mischief, and saying, hey, Ed's a bit of a loose cannon, go get his gun.
That's right. And that's done quite a bit. As a matter of fact, I represent a lot of people who face those types of false charges time and again, time and again. Sometimes, I had one individual in particular, he had his gun seized 3 times in 2 years, and each time it was a false report made by an ex-spouse.
And of course, as I'm finding out as I apply for these things, you've got to notify police on who your current spouse is, who your ex-spouse or ex-conjugal partner might be. They have to be notified. There's all kinds of paperwork. This is not fun paperwork that I'm doing in going for the gun license. But let's just talk about this issue of seizing firearms in general. This happens far more than most Canadians would realize. You know, we've got the crazy little gun amnesty programs like in Ottawa. You get a point-and-shoot camera if you turn in an old broken .22. But, I mean, beyond illegal handguns that we're showing right now, people are having personal property that is not in any way a violation of the law seized from them. Why? Is it normally paperwork?
It normally is paperwork. Sometimes they'll have a paperwork issue and the police will come in and demand that you open your safe, or they will hammer it apart and they will take the unloaded gun that was stored in the safe and they'll take it into the police station.
How can they do that?
Well, they do it under the criminal code. The idea is that if you did one thing wrong with one gun today, even if there was no victim, just say...
So we're talking a paperwork offense, let's say.
That's right, paperwork offense. Then they take all the guns because they figure, well, you might make a mistake tomorrow and we're going to take all your guns. And moreover, we're going to apply that you be prohibited for 5 years from being able to touch a gun or touch a cartridge. Absolutely
unreal. This calls for reform. Are you part of the group that wants to see the criminal code violations for the paperwork offenses done away with? I mean, still
Yes.
keep criminal code offenses for actual thugs with guns, but let's make it a ticket. Is that where you are?
It should be on the same level as a ticket. You don't need to make a person a criminal for having a paperwork offense. In fact, right now it's so bad that if I have a paperwork offense of transporting my handgun too far, let's say I go to my gun club and then I get a call and somebody says, look, you got to come up to the cottage and you got to see me and I got to drive 20 miles away from my gun club to answer an emergency. I have now become a criminal. That's a paperwork offense and that can be a jail term for me. That's out of control.
Yeah, no, it's one thing to treat thugs with guns that are running around waving loaded handguns outside of community centers that way. It's another thing to treat law-abiding citizens like that. Ed, good talking to you as always. Keep up the good work.
Well, thank you and have a happy holiday.
All right.